You see a lot of things, standing in the crowd outside Buckingham Palace. You see the little girl who loses her balloon and watches it disappear into the grey London sky like a ghost. You see the old couple who hold hands like they're both afraid the other will float away, too. You see the tourists taking the same photo 100 times, trying to get the light just right. But you don't usually see him. Not really. You see the uniform. The bearskin. The polished boots. The face carved from centuries of tradition. He's not a man to you. He's a piece of the furniture. A living statue with a pulse you're not even sure is real. Until the day I noticed the cufflink. It was a Tuesday in early November. The kind of cold that doesn't shout at you but whispers into your bones. Drizzle. Not proper rain, just that wet English air that makes every scarf feel useless. The crowd was thin. Maybe 40 people. A school group from somewhere in the Midlands, their teacher counting heads with the tired precision of a shepherd. A few Japanese tourists with expensive cameras. A man eating a sandwich he was clearly not enjoying. And me. I was there because my train was delayed and I had 40 minutes to kill. That's the truth. No patriotic urge. No deep fascination with the monarchy. Just a delayed train and a damp bench near the Victoria Memorial. The guard was on the left side of the palace gates. Standard routine. March. Stop. Turn. Pause. March again. His face was young beneath that huge black fur hat. Maybe 22. 23. The kind of face you'd see working at a car wash or studying in a university library. But here, it was stone. Except something caught the weak light. I almost missed it. Most people did. But I've always been a watcher. My father used to say I was born with my eyes open and my mouth shut. So I watched. On his left wrist, where the crisp red tunic met the white glove, there was a cufflink. Gold. Or gold-looking, anyway. Shiny. Proper. The kind of thing that probably had a royal crest on it. And it was broken. Not dramatically broken. Not hanging by a thread. But the little clasp on the back, the toggle that keeps it shut, was missing. He'd jury-rigged it somehow. A tiny piece of black thread, maybe fishing line, wrapped around the post. It was holding. Barely. Every time he moved his arm, that cufflink shifted. Just a millimeter. Just enough. I stared. And then, I realized something that made my stomach go cold. That tiny, almost invisible flaw was the only thing about this man that was real. Set up. Let me explain what I mean. The British Royal Guard is not designed to be relatable. That's the point. They are tall. They are silent. They do not scratch their noses or yawn or check their phones. They have been trained to stand so perfectly still that pigeons have been known to land on their rifles. Tourists test them. They wave hands in front of their faces. They shout jokes. They get right up close, breath fogging on that polished brass. The guard does not blink. It's impressive. It's also deeply, profoundly strange. Because you realize, after watching for a while, that you are not looking at a human being anymore. You are looking at a performance. A very old, very expensive, very serious performance. The uniform is perfect. The red tunic has been pressed within an inch of its life. The trousers have a crease sharp enough to open letters. The boots, God, those boots, reflect the gray sky like black mirrors. There are no scuffs. No smudges. No loose threads. Every single detail has been checked and rechecked. There are regulations for everything. The spacing between the buttons. The angle of the belt. The way the bearskin sits on the head. A senior officer probably inspected this young man before he took his post. Ran a white glove over his shoulders. Checked his seams. Made sure he was, to the outside world, flawless. That's the word they use. Flawless. Because the royal family isn't just a family. It's a symbol. And the guards are the fence around that symbol. They have to be perfect so that what they protect can seem perfect, too. It's all one big beautiful lie that everyone agrees to believe. I've thought about that a lot since that day. How we all agree to believe things. We agree that a man in a big hat is a statue. We agree that a palace is more important than a row of council flats. We agree that a broken cufflink is a failure. But here's what I saw on that bench, shivering in the drizzle. The guard finished his march. He turned. He paused. And, during that pause, while the tourists were busy taking photos of his front, I watched his back. His shoulders dropped. Just a fraction. Just for a second. It was the tiniest physical exhale I have ever seen. He was tired. Not soldier tired. Not the good kind of tired after a hard day. It was something else. Something heavier. His eyes, which had been fixed on some invisible point across the square, flickered for just a moment. They looked down. At the ground. At his boots. At nothing. And then, they were gone. The mask was back. But I had seen it. That flicker. That crack in the armor. And I started to wonder. Build tension. The crowd changed around noon. The school group left. A coach full of American retirees arrived, and they were loud. The kind of loud that comes from a lifetime of thinking everything is for your entertainment. One man in a baseball cap started yelling at the guard. "Hey! Buddy! Can you smile? Just once?" The guard did not move. "I paid for this trip, you know." The man laughed. His wife tugged his sleeve. He shrugged her off. "I'm serious. You people are so stiff." Nothing. The man got bored eventually. They always do. But something was different now. The guard's posture had changed. It was still perfect, technically perfect, but there was a tension in it that hadn't been there before. His jaw was tighter. His breathing was shallower. I could see it in the way his chest rose and fell beneath that red tunic. And that cufflink. It had shifted again. The little thread was working loose. I could see it now that I knew to look. A tiny black spiral, unwinding itself one twist at a time. In another hour, maybe less, that cufflink would fall off. And then, his sleeve would gap. And then, someone would see. And then, I didn't know what would happen. A fine? A reprimand? Being taken off duty? It probably wasn't a big deal in the grand scheme of things. But, to him? In that moment? I had a feeling it felt enormous. A young woman approached the gate. She was maybe 25. Brown hair pulled back in a messy bun. Carrying a Sainsbury's bag. She wasn't a tourist. She walked like someone who knew this area, who lived nearby, who was just passing through on her lunch break. She stopped about 10 feet from the guard. And she just looked at him. Not the way the tourists looked. Not curious or demanding or amused. She looked at him the way you look at someone you used to know. Someone you have complicated feelings about. The guard's eyes moved. Just barely. Just enough to acknowledge her. She nodded. Once. Small. He didn't nod back. He couldn't. But something passed between them. Some understanding. Some shared memory. Then, she walked away. Disappeared into the crowd near the mall. And I watched the guard's face, and I swear to you, I saw something crack. Not break. Just crack. A hairline fracture in that perfect stone expression. His left hand twitched. Just a flicker. Just a spasm. And the cufflink moved again. Climax, here's where it gets strange. About 20 minutes later, a little boy got lost. Maybe 7 years old. Wearing a Spider-Man backpack and crying the way only children can cry with their whole bodies. He was weaving through the crowd, calling for his mom, and no one was paying attention. The Americans were taking a group photo. The Japanese tourists had left. The sandwich man was gone. The boy stumbled toward the gate. Right toward the guard. People noticed now. A few tourists pointed. Someone said, "Should we do something?" But no one moved. That's the thing about crowds. Everyone thinks someone else will handle it. The boy was maybe 3 feet from the guard when he tripped. He went down hard on the wet pavement. His knee scraped open. He screamed. And the guard moved. Not the march. Not the practiced turn. Something else entirely. He dropped to one knee. His rifle, his actual rifle, clattered against the gate. He set it down. He reached for the boy. The crowd gasped. A few people actually gasped. Because you're not supposed to see that. The guard is not supposed to kneel. The guard is not supposed to put down his weapon. The guard is not supposed to be a person. But there he was. On the wet ground. Holding a crying child. "It's all right," he said. His voice was quiet. Soft. Nothing like the bark you'd expect. "You're all right. What's your name?" The boy sobbed. Liam. Liam. Okay, Liam. I need you to take a breath for me. Can you do that? The boy tried. It came out as a hiccup. Good, the guard said. That was good. Now let's find your mum, yeah? He stood up, still holding the boy's hand. And that's when I saw it. The cufflink. The broken one. It had finally given up. The thread snapped. The little gold disc fell to the pavement. It landed with a sound no one heard but me. A tiny tink against the stone. The guard's sleeve gaped open. A flash of white shirt. A flash of skin. And, on his forearm, just above the wrist, there was a scar. Not a small one. A bad one. Burned scars, I think. Pink and wrinkled and old. The kind of scar that tells a story you don't want to hear. He noticed. For one terrible second, he noticed that his sleeve had fallen open and that 30 strangers were staring at his arm. His face went pale. His free hand jerked toward the cuff. But the boy was still crying. And the boy's mother was running toward them now, shouting, her face red with fear and relief. And the guard made a choice. He let go of the cuff. He kept holding the boy's hand. He walked the child to the mother. He said something to her, too quiet for me to hear. She nodded. She cried. She hugged her son. And then, the guard walked back to his post. His sleeve was still open. The scar was still visible. He stood at attention, facing forward, as if nothing had happened. But something had happened. The crowd was silent. The Americans weren't taking photos anymore. The teacher from the school group was crying quietly. An old man took off his hat. Because for the first time all day, we weren't looking at a guard. We were looking at a man. Resolution: he stayed on duty for another 2 hours. I know because I stayed too. Missed my train. Didn't care. No one came to fix his cufflink. No officer appeared to scold him. Maybe no one noticed. Or maybe they noticed and decided, for once, to let it slide. I don't know. I'd like to think they let it slide. The crowd thinned out again as the afternoon went on. The light changed. That golden hour that photographers love, even when it's filtered through London cloud. And then, at exactly 4 o'clock, a new guard appeared. Fresh uniform. Fresh face. Perfect cufflinks. The first guard saluted. The second guard saluted back. They did the ceremony, the slow march, the exchange of positions, the little dance of duty and tradition. And then, the first guard walked away. He didn't look back. He walked toward a small door in the palace wall, the one the public never notices. He walked with his head up. His left sleeve still open. His scar still showing. Just before he disappeared inside, he stopped. For a second. Just a second. He looked over his shoulder. Not at the crowd. Not at the palace. He looked at the spot on the pavement where his cufflink had fallen. The little gold disc was still there. No one had picked it up. He smiled. It was a small smile. Tired. Sad. But real. And then, he was gone. Ending line. I went back the next day. Same bench. Same drizzle. Different guard. Perfect uniform. Perfect face. Not a single flaw anywhere. And I thought about that broken cufflink. How it had sat there on the wet ground all night, probably. How a cleaner or a tourist or a pigeon had probably kicked it away by now. How it was just a tiny piece of metal in a city full of tiny pieces of metal. But, for one afternoon, it had been the only thing keeping a man from being a statue. And, when it broke, he finally got to be human. That's the thing about perfection, I guess. It's a cage. And, sometimes the only way out is something small and broken and beautiful that no one was supposed to see.